into a Purpose-Driven Wife podcast. I'm your host, Trista LeBorn. Year started. I have Rihanna with me. She is one of the guests that I'm going to be just kind of talking with here on the podcast this episode. And I want you guys just to get more. Besides, even though I talk a lot about Christ, and I understand, and I know that you guys get my heart, that I am a diehard Christian. I love Jesus and everything, but I want to also give you just to give you a little bit more about me. And so I am a military spouse. Besides being a diehard Christian, I am a military spouse. My husband is in the Marine Corps. For those that are new, and this may be just catching up for you guys that have been tuning with me since the beginning. I have 3 children. I have twins, and my youngest is 2. I'm very passionate about business, just being an entrepreneur, and also at the same time, how do we juggle? And I think that's like the number one question. How do you juggle and balance being a mom and a wife and having a business when you're so passionate on one hand about your business, but then you want to also give your best to your family? And so I've learned the hard way, of course, right? Like, what other way is there to really understand that, number one, there is no such thing as balance, okay? So when I say there is no such thing as balance, what I mean is just look at the whole definition of what balance is. Balance is, on equal sides, basically you are balancing being a mom, and in each and every one of those categories that you're juggling, each and every one of them are going to get the same amount of energy. And, kind of society kind of gives that impression that you can do it, that you can balance being a mother, wife, juggling children and juggling having a business, the ups and the downs of having a business, the ups and the downs of being a military spouse, the ups and the downs of even just having children, right? And then just kind of sprinkle in there, some families have, children that are uniquely created. And what I mean by that is children that are special needs, Then you have, spouses that sometimes, they may come from a deployment and they have PTSD. And so how about sprinkle a little bit of those things in there, and then you still have to be able to balance everything. And so, I have basically, put that trash in the garbage. And, I've really embraced what God has really just began to really share with me, that, what's really important is, my time with God. And then as he just begins to pour into me, and then strengthens me to be able to go about my day, then I can be able to pour my best into my children, my work, and my husband. And so that may look like this. Sometimes there's going to be days where I'm not going to do my business. Because then you hear a lot of the lies that's out there that says, well, you have to work on your business every day, or you have to do this. And pause. Even though I'm talking about this, we're going to get to Rihanna, but I'm just want to I'm setting the stage, okay? So, what I want to share in my heart is, you don't have to have everything, just kind of balance, or, work on your business every single day. No, it doesn't work like that. Life happens, and then, like I said, and still be successful at the same time, in all areas. How about that, right? In all areas in marriage, in all areas of your business, in all areas in your family, right? So here I have Rihanna, who is one of those people that I have described to you that is doing it. She is a mom, she is a wife, and she's a military spouse, and she also has her business. And so I love to be able to, invite different people that, that are like-minded, that's also about empowering and just really, sharing about, this is what military life is about, and it's crazy. It's not always a bed of roses. And Rihanna, I really just want you to just come from that kind of perspective, So like I said, I am a Marine Corps spouse. Rihanna is an Air Force spouse. And so I like to give, this different perspective from different branches. So Rihanna, as I was blabbing most of this podcast or this episode, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I am a podcast virgin. So, first time.
Yes. So welcome. And And you know what? And every time, when I invite people, this is also for my listeners and for you, Rihanna, that, every time when I invite people over, it's always it seems just like, oh, I better get it right kind of thing. And, I like to give this relax, let's just chill. I have some tea right now, and, let's just drink tea and chat. Like if we was at Starbucks or just in a park with our kids or something, and let's just chat, Yeah. So that's what this podcast is about, So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am an Air Force spouse, and we have been in, I say we, right? We have been for almost 15 years.
Okay. Wow. And so yeah, so tell us a little bit, do you have children, and, how long you've been married?
So this year will be 12 years. 2016 will be 12 years. How about that?
Yeah.
And we are actually high school sweethearts.
Nice.
So, met in high school, and we've been together ever since. So we were together long before he went in. We have 3.
So you have a busy lifestyle.
Yes. As one of my many things I do.
Yeah. So, okay. So you have a blog called Cameo Style Love.
Cameo Style Love. Yep.
And you know what? And I kind of hate this stigma when it comes to military spouses, because then it's like, well, you're a military spouse. Of course, like you have a blog, right? Kind of thing. And so I kind of hate that. So, can you just kind of share just how you got started with blogging and things like that?
Well, I call it not a unique story in that I started blogging, back in, I think it's almost 5 years now.
Okay.
And I started blogging when we were at our duty station in Nevada, and it was a remote location, so no base housing, no commissary, no child development center.
Wow.
Any place, small unit, no other families. So there were spouses and girlfriends. A lot of them were dual serving in that area. And so I did not have a lot of support. And so I sought out online support really by accident. I can't even tell you how I found it, but I'm sure you were probably also a part of that. The big, huge military spouse forums.
Yeah.
All that. That was such a huge thing.
It's
back
so true.
in 2008, 2009, that time frame. So, and I just kind of stumbled on it that way. And actually my first post was a post about cookie cutters. No joke.
Wow.
And it was, you post about these cookie cutters and you get a discount. How hilarious is that?
Wow.
So that was my first post. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing at all, which I'm sure most of us who blog say when they first start out. You just jump right in, and I created everything. I created my header myself from an app that's no longer in existence, and so I jumped in. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was really just looking for community, and I saw a lot of other people who were also doing the same thing, and I was amazed at how huge this blogging world was. And it really wasn't as commercial as it is now. It was a lot of people just talking and telling their stories, which I've really tried to stick with as I blog. I obviously do sponsored posts because that's really the direction of blogging in general. But I really try to still write like it's my journal, which is kind of how blogging started.
Yes.
So I try to keep with that as much as I can.
So why did you call it Cameo Style Love?
So it's one of those things where you have your name and then you go roll with it. It was my life, and that was the style of love we had. And there you go. That's as easy as it is. And this is my thing, and people know me by it. Now, when I meet people out, they know it, or by my online, persona, which is Ree Christine, which is most of my social media is that. That's just how people know me, and so I'm just embracing it.
And, you are so right when you say that, back during like maybe '07, '08, even '09, forums was so huge. And that is where I got the bulk of my just being a military spouse, like even how to navigate it, to even how to just do stuff, that is where, and like you say, when you just searching for a community, that is, the forums is what helped, and I actually am still friends with some of the girls that I've met in the forums.
And I actually I met two when we moved here to the East Coast.
Did you?
I had, before they were even married, and I had met them that long ago, and I still know them. And some of them I have still never met. And we've connected on Facebook, and we're still friends. And I just think it just blows my mind all the time. But I'm so grateful for that. It's just crazy.
Yes. And look, and so am I, because, that's where I got a lot of my information. I've met some really cool people there. And, now I feel like, armed and just ready to just, be a military spouse,
Yes.
And so, and even when you're a military spouse and then you come and then you basically, you get married, then you follow your spouse to these random places. And then for you, it was like out of nowhere. It was in the middle of nowhere, basically. And so like you are just by yourself doing the ups and downs, experiencing the ups and downs of being, military spouse, having to, for me, I know when I married my husband, I was a new mom. I was not only a new mom, a new wife, and I didn't even know how to like live with somebody with children, live with somebody with children. And so I was so like brand new, basically a baby. Okay. And then not only that, like my husband had to teach me how to drive before he left for deployment. Like, and that's how bad it is, right? Before he had to leave for deployment, he was going on like a 6-month deployment, and he was like, Trista, you have to learn how to drive. We have these kids now, you're going to have to go places. And so like, it was just like months for me to learn how to drive in this Yukon XL truck that I had to learn how to drive and get my driver's license in the place that we were at. And so now I'm going through the ups and downs. I have the children in the back, and then I'm learning how to drive. My husband teaching me. I mean, just things like that, you just having to go through. And so having a community is really important. Yeah. How was it for you when you first got started with, this whole lifestyle?
I was ready.
Okay.
I thought I was ready in the sense that I was excited. I have a long history of military in my family. My father was not in the military, but grandpas, uncles, aunts. I mean, I come from a very patriotic sense of duty to your country, a pride. I don't want to say it's greater than like your average American, but it was just very much a part of, we cry at patriotic songs and that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
It was just ingrained in my life. And so I was definitely ready to go. Now, my husband, when he joined what is called the Active Guard Reserve.
Yes.
So, Air National Guard, but active duty. And that is such a complicated thing. Yeah. And so I very rarely ever say that. I just say Air Force because it's just too much of a conversation.
Yeah.
So we were not facing any moves as quickly as normal people would.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, we were only going to be 2 hours away from where we grew up in a different state, but still only 2 hours away. And the only thing that really hit me was the lack of support.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's really been a driving force of mine since that time. I mean, that's really the purpose of most anything that I do related to blogging or writing. a lot of my advocacy work, almost all of it, is very driven towards people who don't have resources. And it wasn't until I moved here, which is outside DC, that I really realized how many people are in that same situation.
It's so true.
Because even though I had forums and I saw people on there for support, it felt like a different sort of support than one that I was looking for. I was looking for nonprofits and military support, and I heard all these things, people being able to leave their kids at a child development center, and they were having this baby shower and free Christmas trees, and we did not join the military for those things, and I don't think anybody does. But when that people get those things, you're thinking, well, what? I mean, we are very blessed. We had an amazing squadron. My husband's boss bought us our travel system back in the day. The car seat and the giant stroller all together. So I mean, we were very blessed. But I know that there's people who weren't as blessed as we were, and felt like those people really needed that support. They would have loved to have had a baby shower or the back to school events. And so that was really one of the things that struck me the most. It was a really big shock when I joined, the lack of support for people who are remotely stationed. And as I went along and we went to California and stayed for a little while at a different base, and then we made this big move out here to the East Coast, I realized that there were so many people that were facing that as well, and it was a branch-wide problem. And then you have recruiters and things like that who also experience that kind of stuff. So that was a huge shock for me, and that's really been my driving force ever since.
So because of that, what do you do? So do you volunteer? And then compared to like other branches, what do you hear a lot? Because I know for the Marine Corps, it's a little tougher. The Marine Corps, my husband does work a lot, and that just depends on the type of job that you have, so for my husband, I can only speak for my husband. Because of the type of job he has, he works on, aircraft. And so he works a lot. He works a lot, and he even deploys a lot. And then there's even those that's in the Marine Corps that don't even deploy, And so you run into that. So as far as the Air Force, I feel like the Air Force is like the best, like in good stuff and resources and things like that. Can you talk about that?
I would say reintegration, having to do reintegration every month, for example, is difficult. So, and I think you find that in every branch, and you're right. It depends on the job. It really does. I hear a lot from people who aren't in the Air Force that our resources, our family resources are better, our housing is better. And again, that depends on the location that you're at.
That's true too.
Some of these houses are really old. Some of these government houses, man, they're old, and you hear bad stuff from all branches. But that is something that I do hear on a regular basis, is that, oh, you guys have great housing, or, oh, you guys have great, family resources on base. I hear that a lot. Having never actually lived on base, I don't experience that in the same way that like other people would. Back in the 80s and earlier, the 80s is really when it started increasing more. So I would say pre-80s, it was definitely a 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, being called up for earthquakes and fires and flood was definitely more common. These days, your National Guard is deploying as much and more than their active duty counterparts.
Wow. Yeah.
So and that is something that, as far as advocacy goes, that I've definitely had to, butt heads with people on, because they don't understand that. And it's been a while since 9/11, but it really hasn't been that long when you think about nonprofits and the cycle of how they were developed. Some of these, like the USO has been around for years and years and years and years, decades.
Yeah.
And they are having to address the fact that National Guard are different now than they were when they started.
Mm.
And that's definitely an issue, I think, for people who are in the National Guard, Air and Army.
Mm.
And most people don't know.
Yes. And you're right. Most people don't know. And so even as you run into this, do you feel that, volunteering just helps with, learning more about, exactly the behind the scenes of what's going on and things like that?
Yes, I have found that. And I've also found, using my blog and my freelance writing way to, get notifications about things. So I'm going out to stuff and I'm going as a writer, and then they hear I'm a military spouse. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, you're a military spouse. So I think they don't see me as, I'm not a threat. I don't want to say a threat, but, I think they tend to be open, and I get to do a lot of things that I don't think that I would get to do if I weren't also a military spouse.
Okay.
I think that has been so wonderful for me. It's because I've gotten to experience things and gotten to be at things that I don't think someone would get to cover as far as like press goes from a small perspective that would if I was not a military spouse. So I attended one thing one time, and I was talking to somebody. She was an assistant to one of the under deputy secretaries of state for something. Like, there's so many of them. It's like military family services or something like that. And this was, I don't know, maybe about 3 years ago. And I had said something to her about National Guard. And she had no idea about what qualifies us for support services and what doesn't.
Oh, wow.
In the National Guard, you have what's called Title 10 and you've got Title 32. And these are things that differentiate your service, whether you're being state activated or you're being federally activated. So my husband has been state activated. So that's during floods. He went on patrol during fires to pull out from looting and all that kind of stuff. So that's a state activation. And then there's federal activation. There's all these weird little nuances in the National Guard that, a lot of these support services say, oh, we'll only help you if you're under Title 32 for more than 60 days.
Wow.
So here you have someone like me whose husband deploys, and I'm using my air quotes, deploys, whether that be in country or out of country. And most frequently, it's less than 90 days at one time.
Yeah.
And I don't qualify for any support services. So he'll come back for another month and then go away again. So there's little things like that I don't think people in government, in nonprofit world, or even just your average citizen, they don't realize all these little nuances that make our life and people who are like us, have to face things a little bit different.
And that, and that makes sense because, they have all this idea of, what all the other branches and just kind of group you in, or have this idea, that, all of them are the same, all of them, do pretty much the same thing. And so, they're not realizing that, everyone is different. Every single branch is different, and then all of our needs is different as well. So that makes sense, that they will do something like that, So is there something that you want to just, kind of talk about when it comes to the Air Force and just being a mom and, just living that lifestyle?
Gosh, so many things.
I know. Well, you know what? Let's start by, just having your own business, okay? How did you start just, having your own business, not only with the blog, but with, other things that you do? Just kind of talk about that.
Well, I am definitely an extrovert, if you couldn't tell. I could talk for hours, but I, I've never wanted to just stay in my house all day. And I've never been like that. Even as a child in high school, I was always out with people. And even though I knew, even before I was married, that I wanted to stay home with my children, I always knew I'd be doing something. So the blog thing started, which, is like a snowball, right? So now you're writing, you're freelance writing, you're part of the press association, so now you're covering events. And then from there, it just kind of ballooned into what it is now. So I volunteer in my community. So I volunteer at our church. I volunteer with different nonprofits that are military focused. And then for me, I always had a hobby. So reading or crocheting or knitting. And I just sort of stumbled into, by accident, selling what I make handmade. And it's not lucrative by any means. And I really should devote more time to it. But I really do it because it's fun. And if people want to buy it, I sell it to them probably for less than I should if I wanted to make it a business. Mm-hmm. But I love doing that. And that's one of my getaway kind of things. So, if I'm stressed out or lonely, I'm probably either reading a book or crocheting or knitting something. So, that keeps me busy. And then I also started recently taking Plexus, which is a health business and company. And technically I sell it, but that's another thing that I had not devoted enough time to. My sister got me into it, and I love it. I love how it makes me feel, and it's been really helpful and good for me physically for some issues that I had going on. And so, my sister's amazing, and she got me into that, and now one of my neighbors does it, and I have all these things that if I really devoted more time to could be awesome, right?
Wow,
but I have children, one which is still home, and a husband who's not home all the time. So it's not the most ideal of circumstances if you're going to be a small business owner, right?
Mm-hmm. You do what's best for your situation, it's part of who you are. And then not only that, your business, you can do whatever you want, and that's the beauty of business. You can basically do whatever you want, you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You just do what works for you, your family, and and also for your business.
I just really enjoy all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to do a little bit of everything, until my littlest one goes to school. And then I feel like that opens a whole other door, of opportunity. And I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, but I still have 2 more years of him at home. But I even now I think, gosh, what am I going to do with myself when he goes to school? And then I stop for a second and think, look at all this stuff that I'm not doing because he's not at school. So I guess I'll find something to keep my time preoccupied, right?
And you know what? As military spouses, because, we are just used to, just being so flexible and versatile and all of that, you will find something, That's just part of being in that lifestyle, right? Pretty much. So in addition to your businesses and things like that, do you see yourself as successful? I mean, and I say that only because, as military spouses, we are very just hard on ourselves, because, we're not, I guess, on a level as where our husband or our spouses, and I mean that as far as I don't know, number one, making the money, or we're leaving the house and it seems like, they're enjoying what they're doing, just fill in the blank. For you, do you feel that you are successful?
Well, I tell someone asked me that, and I said, of all the things that I've done, I think the moment that I knew that I was doing something right was when I got asked to cover the holiday decorations unveiling at the White House. They have military families come in for the last couple of years, and they are part of the opening ceremonies kind of deal. They invite wounded families, Gold Star families, just different things like that. They're invited, and I covered that. So there's a press viewing that happens along with the military families being allowed in and do the decorations. So, I'm walking around with CBS and, this guy from NPR who I kind of fangirled over. And I'm in the briefing room listening to the daily brief, by the press aides, and then walking through the White House and just being able to roam and take pictures. And I interviewed, there was a couple military spouses who had been chosen to be part of the decorating team. And that's something that people submit nominations for. So there was people that had flown from different states based on a letter someone had sent saying person deserves and all that kind of stuff. I'm walking through outside and I'm looking up and I'm standing next to the White House and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is okay. I've done it. This is it.
Wow.
That was sort of, how I felt like maybe I had accomplished something. That's one of those things, like I said, I don't know if your average blogger would get invited to something like that. I think that's definitely something that I can give thanks to my husband for being a part of the military and being a military spouse. But I definitely am of the opinion, like, whatever opportunities you get, don't squander them. Don't waste them.
Yeah.
Something amazing out of them, however you got them. Do something and give back. And the last time I went, I was able to get another blogger invited as well. Because I wanted to, pass on those opportunities to somebody else that also wouldn't get the opportunity to go. So
that is an awesome opportunity. Were you able to take your family with you? My kids and I, my two oldest kids and I have been just as attendees through a Christmas tour. Yeah.
But no, that was just a press event.
You know what? That, to me sounds very successful because you're doing what you love, not at the expense of your family, and you're still able to help others that are around you, To me, success is not like the traditional thing. Come to your blog and just sharing the tips about, the resources of being just an Air Force spouse. That's successful, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how I view it.
Because, and then for us, it's not like a typical definition of success, but we don't live typical lives either.
No, I'm definitely not over here raking in the...
That's funny. And so, and that's what I love. I love the fact that, as military spouses, we don't live typical lives. And so, a lot of our answers is not going to be typical. A lot of things that we do is not going to be typical. So, we are just different. We are our own separate community. And so I love it. So as we draw to a close, what are some final tips that you want to share? Something that you want to share maybe about your faith, maybe just about being a military spouse, a mom, and just something, that you feel may encourage someone or anything like that.
Well, for me, I feel like in the last 2 duty stations that we were at, that our church family really is, it has been a saving grace. I know when we first moved here, my husband had to go travel for a while, and it was really hard because I had moved somewhere new and I had just had a baby. He was, only a couple months old. We moved across the country. I had gallbladder surgery and we moved here, and then he was gone a lot, which, wasn't expected. And I just remember being in our church at a kids event, and someone was asking me to do something, which I normally would have been gung-ho about. And I just started crying in front of these people. They didn't know me hardly at all. And they're like, it's okay. It's going to be great. I'm going to help you. And, they were so wonderful. And one of my friends here, she kept calling me and, bugging me basically.
Yeah.
She didn't know me, but she had been a military kid herself. Mm-hmm. Knew what that life was like. And she just didn't stop. She didn't let go. And, I really struggled with postpartum depression the first time around and this third time around. And, that coupled with just life, is sometimes overwhelming. And so I'm really thankful for that. And I'm thankful that I let those people in. And, that's something that I would, charge people with who are listening, is that, you have to let people in, and, you don't know where that will come from. It could be it could be family, it could be your church, but if you don't let people in, and even if you think you're not that kind of person, like, I don't really think that I'm that kind of person. As I said before, I'm an extrovert, out with people, but, that's sometimes the hardest people to get to let in, because we're already out. We're not hiding away. We're just pretending very well. So, and that's a personal thing. Now, as far as a military spouse, you can only help yourself as much as you help yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to look sometimes for support. It's not going to just come knocking to your door. Some people have had it basically come to their door. They live on base. They have kids. They can access all sorts of support systems, and sometimes they don't. And even if they do live on base, maybe they're not an extrovert. Maybe they're an introvert. Mm-hmm. Maybe they are looking online. Mm-hmm. Don't discount those online persons. And I have so many on my blog, and I'm always looking for more. I mean, if you are ever on my blog and you don't see something listed that should be, please tell me, and I will put it, because I just want to have as much information as I can, because you never know who's going to stumble across it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people they stumbled across by accident. I wasn't really looking for anything, and I just found it, and it has something on there that helps me. So I want to have as much as possible on there for people. So I think that's kind of where I would leave that.
I really love that, because, it's really about connecting. So thank you so much, Brianna, for, coming on and just, sharing about being an Air Force spouse. So if anyone that was listening and just would like to learn more information about you, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, definitely come to the blog for sure. Mm-hmm. CamoStyleLove.com. CAMMOSTYLE love.com. Super easy. Mm-hmm. Come to the blog, find me on Instagram, and I'll find a way to make sure that you have the links and everything, if you need it. But you can find anything that you need to get hold of me from my blog, whether it be Instagram or Twitter or my email. Definitely come by the blog, get in touch with me. People email me all the time asking me questions that have nothing to do with my blog. I'm looking for this resource, or, I'm living in this area. And then if you are a National Guard or Reserve family member, spouse, and you're listening to this, I also have a Facebook page that's just for National Guard and Reserve families.
Nice.
just search National Guard families, and we'll probably be one of the first ones that pops up. So I do a lot of interstate sharing, as sometimes you don't live where your unit is. So that's another big thing.
Yeah.
So come by.
That is awesome. And, everything that she has talked about, I will have on my website, all the show notes, which is A Purpose Driven Wife at adrianwife.com. And guys, thank you so much for listening. And if you have more questions, definitely check Rihanna out and her page and on Instagram. Thank you so much, Rihanna. And guys, you be blessed.